The village was silent. The night was darker than usual. No moon hung in the sky. It was the kind of night that felt heavy, like something bad was about to happen. The four boys stood at the edge of the village, their laughter echoing in the stillness. Ayan, the brave one, pointed towards the hill. "There it is," he said, his voice hushed. Ravi, the tallest of the group, shivered. "Are you sure about this, Ayan?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Nikhil, the quiet one, just nodded, his eyes fixed on the mansion. Samir, the joker of the group, tried to lighten the mood. "Don't worry, Ravi," he said, his voice a loud whisper. "Ghosts only come out in the movies." But even his bravado couldn't hide the fear that was starting to creep into their hearts. They had heard the stories, whispered by the village elders. Stories of the haunted mansion on the hill, a place where a tragic love story had ended in a terrible curse. It was said that the ghost of the heartbroken lover still roamed the halls, searching for his lost love. The boys had always dismissed these stories as mere superstition. But tonight, standing here in the oppressive darkness, they couldn't shake off a feeling of unease. The dare had seemed like a good idea back in the bright light of day. Now, as they made their way towards the mansion, each step filled them with a growing sense of dread. The wind howled around them like a mournful cry, and the trees swayed menacingly, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The silence of the village was broken only by the sound of their own footsteps and the frantic beating of their hearts. The mansion loomed before them, a dark and imposing structure against the backdrop of the night sky. It was a double-story building, once grand, now crumbling with neglect. The walls were made of dark stone, now weathered and overgrown with creepers. Windows, once gleaming, were now dark, empty sockets staring out at them like the eyes of a predator. The once elegant balconies were now draped in cobwebs, thick and dusty. The iron gate, rusted and covered in vines, creaked ominously as they pushed it open. The garden, once a place of beauty, was now a tangle of weeds and overgrown shrubs. Broken statues, their faces eroded by time and weather, stood like silent sentinels, their shadows stretching long and distorted in the darkness. The air was heavy with the smell of damp earth and decay. As they approached the house, they noticed a wooden porch that ran along the front. The paint was peeling, and the floorboards creaked ominously under their weight. A swing hung from one end, its chains rusted and still. It was a swing that had once held the laughter of children, now a silent reminder of happier times. A single flickering lantern hung near the front door, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and twist like living things. The wind howled around them, whipping their clothes and sending shivers down their spines. This close, the mansion seemed to pulsate with an unseen energy, a palpable aura of sadness and despair. They stood on the porch, their breath misting in the cold air. Ayan, ever the leader, took a deep breath and placed his hand on the doorknob. It was cold and damp to the touch. He hesitated for a moment, then, with a determined push, he flung the door open. The sound of its creaking echoed through the silence, like a scream in the night. The hallway yawned before them, dark and forbidding. Dust motes danced in the single beam of light that streamed in from the flickering lantern on the porch. The air inside was stale and musty, thick with the scent of decay and something else, something unidentifiable, yet distinctly unsettling. Cobwebs, thick and grey, hung from every corner, and the only sound was the beating of their own hearts. Ayan clicked on his flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness. Ravi, Nikhil, and Samir followed close behind, their own flashlights illuminating the dusty portraits on the walls and the cobweb-covered furniture. The mansion seemed to press in on them, the silence amplifying every creak and groan of the old house. They moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing on the wooden floor. A sudden noise made them jump, a loose shutter banging against the side of the house, propelled by the wind. But even this ordinary sound seemed amplified, distorted in this place. Fear, cold and clammy, tightened its grip on their hearts. They rounded a corner, their flashlights illuminating a dusty old grandfather clock. As they watched, the pendulum swung back and forth, even though the clock had long since stopped ticking. And then they saw him, a translucent figure hovering at the end of the hallway. His name was Kumar, the ghost whispered, his voice a mournful sigh. He had lived in this house a long time ago. He spoke of his love, a beautiful girl named Maya, and how their families had been against their love. He told them of the night Maya died, a tragic accident, and how he had been inconsolable. He had wandered the halls ever since, searching for her, unable to leave. He showed them a faded photograph he held in his hand, a picture of a young couple, their smiles radiant and full of life. He pointed to the locket around the woman's neck. "This locket," he whispered, his voice thick with sadness. "It holds the key to my peace." He then revealed a matching locket, broken, clutched in his spectral hand. The boys, their initial fear replaced by pity and a strange sort of awe, listened intently. They promised Kumar they would help him find peace. As the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, they found themselves by the river, the locket in their hands. They had escaped the mansion, but the encounter had changed them. They tossed the locket into the river, watching as it sank beneath the surface. As they sat there, the sun rising in the sky, they realized that sometimes the scariest stories are those rooted in love and loss. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to face your fears and offer comfort to a soul in need.